Okay, hello, good morning, good afternoon everybody, and welcome to this week's webinar, which is on the subject of Infor Ion for SunSystems, and specifically we're going to be taking a look at three things: integration, workflow, and alerts. My name is Richard Hughes. I'm Services Director here at Eclipse Computing, and the organizer of this session is Emma Mitchell. I'll put these contact details up again at the end of the session, and we'll also have a Q&A session at the end, so if you've got any questions, we can deal with those as we go. If you want to ask questions, just type them into the GoToWebinar software and we'll pick them up at the end, and then we'll open up the telephone lines for questions as well at the end of the session. Okay, thank you. Oops. Okay, so the agenda today, just a little bit of background and context before we get into specifics of SunSystems processes with Infor Ion. Infor Ion, of course, is a lot bigger than SunSystems. It's a fundamental part of Infor's product strategy going forward, and we'll just take a moment or two just to sort of dig into, discuss briefly what is Infor Ion, how does it fit into Infor's product strategy, and take a look at what are the key components of the Ion product suite. And then, as I said at the top of the session, we'll then break that down into sort of 2 or 3 key parts. We'll look at Ion as an integration platform. We'll also discuss how we can use Ion to manage workflow and events, and of course, specifically for this session, we're going to be talking about how we can use Infor Ion to manage workflow and events in relation to SunSystems applications, or how we could maybe integrate SunSystems into other applications, and we'll take a look at that in a bit of detail, talk through some example scenarios, give you some ideas of how you could possibly implement this within your organization. And then once we've finished up with the slide deck, we'll switch across to the demonstration server, and we'll log in, take a look at the Infor Ion software itself, and I go through a couple of those examples within the product just to show you how we'd actually look in real life. And then, as I said, at the end we'll have a Q&A session, but if anything comes to mind as I'm talking, just type it into the chat window into the GoToWebinar screen, and we can pick that up. Okay, so we should be done, I'm hoping, probably in around 35-40 minutes or so. So it's not a long session. It's really just an introduction to Infor Ion with SunSystems, and we'll be definitely be running this session again, and we'll be looking at some of these other topics in a little bit more detail in other subsequent sessions, and specifically we'll be running some further sessions in the next couple of weeks dealing with the latest release of SunSystems, SunSystems 6.2, and again, there are some exciting things in Sun 6.2 that are powered by Infor Ion, things like enterprise data management, some new enhancements for Infor Ion in relation to 6.2, and again, we'll drill into those in subsequent sessions. So this session is really just to sort of set the scene, give you a few ideas of what we can do with Infor Ion in a SunSystems environment. Okay, so a little bit of background and context. So as I said at the beginning, Infor Ion really is, it's been around for a couple of years now, and it's really a fundamental part of Infor's product strategy going forward. Infor, of course, the authors of SunSystems, their product stack really, there's of course not just SunSystems in there, but they've made a lot of acquisitions over the years, and there are all sorts of applications that actually now form part of the Infor stable. Whether these are the financial applications that we're used to working with, SunSystems, Q&A Vision, through to full-blown manufacturing, large-scale ERP systems, asset management systems. And the background to Infor Ion was that as Infor acquired more and more of these different applications, they needed to have a way initially to be able to easily integrate all of these applications, and all of these things came from different product, different lineages, different backgrounds. They were all built on slightly different technologies. There was no sort of easy way, it seemed, to be able to integrate all of these different applications between themselves, or indeed, with other external applications or other external web services. So that was really one of the reasons why Infor Ion was designed. The second reason was something that you may have seen in some of the sessions we ran earlier this year on Infor Mingle, but one of the other reasons, or one of the other sort of I guess philosophies behind Infor Ion is this idea of the disparate enterprise, where there's a lot of different things happening within today's organization. We have this combination of applications, people, machines, data. There's a lot of interaction between all of these things which is not necessarily captured. And in order to make organizations, businesses more efficient, it would be great if there were a way of linking all of these different things together, providing things like dynamic workflow across different applications. So traditionally it's been very common, workflow is a common requirement, and a lot of applications have built workflow engines into their own products. But again, that's almost that's encased within a single application. More often than not, a single process within an organization maybe spans 2 or 3 different applications, but there's no real way of building a workflow process that can reach out across multiple applications, engage people in different departments, maybe incorporate some, if we're talking about a manufacturing background, incorporate information coming out of machines, and all of which results in some data that maybe needs to be created in one or more different places. So again, Ion was sort of conceived as a way of being able to build workflow not just within Infor applications, but having a common platform where we could potentially build workflow or processes, alerts, tasks that reach out across multiple applications. So Infor, their idea, their vision, if you will, of the modern enterprise is, if an organization is using Ion, then potentially this is something that can really power all of those applications, within the organization. So we can build connections between a CRM system, our ERP system, the sales system, the front office system, the reporting warehouse. All of these things can be joined together a lot more easily, and the way that is done is by using standard internet technologies, open standards for the exchange of data and information between applications, so XML documents, and the structure of those documents, as we'll discuss a little bit later on, is built around a common internet standard called the OAGIS standard. So OAGIS is the Open Applications Group, and that's really at the heart of Ion. So potentially, Ion can really be at the heart of any organization, and it has the ability to connect all of these different pieces together. So if we look at in a little bit more detail, in concrete terms, what is Ion? What's included in the Ion suite of applications? So the first thing to say is just that Ion is a suite. It's a collection of applications, or more often than not, we refer to Ion as a platform. Ion actually stands for Intelligent Open Network, and again, that's really a reflection of the fact that it's, some have referred to it as a middleware platform, but in fact it's a lot more than that. But the Intelligent Open Network really confirms the fact that this is something that's built on internet standards, built on open technology. It's easy to integrate, and the network part being that we can easily connect all of these different applications. But in concrete terms, there are a few different things, and the 3 things that we'll have a look at this afternoon. So there are 3 core parts to the Ion suite. We have Ion Connect, which is, as the name suggests, the integration part of the Ion suite, used for connecting applications between themselves. So this could be connecting SunSystems to an expense management system. It could be connecting SunSystems to to a reporting warehouse. It could be connecting the expense management system to the asset management system. So Connect, that is the integration part of the suite. So it's all about integrating applications. We have event management. So event management, again, as the name suggests, this is a mechanism or a platform for generating alerts and events based on triggers that are coming from the underlying applications. So if something happens in the finance system, we need to fire off an alert to somebody in the management team. Somebody's gone over their credit limit. Somebody hasn't authorized their expenses on time. We need to generate an alert. We can do that through the ION event management part of the suite. And then workflow again, this is pretty self-evident from the description, but this is what we were talking about before. So the ability to easily build workflow around processes within applications, so within any of the applications that are connected to Infor ION, or across all of those applications. So you may have a workflow process within Sun itself.
Hi Richard, sorry to interrupt, I can't see your screen.
Okay, sorry, we've had a problem with the screen here. Sorry, let me just go back.
Thank you.
Sorry, I've probably been talking for about 10 minutes and you're all scratching your heads wondering what on earth I'm talking about.
Just a minute.
Sorry, for some reason the screen was not updating there, so I beg your pardon. So just to recap, that was the agenda. That's just a slide talking about the disparate enterprise, all powered by ION. We were talking about having ION at the heart of the organization. And this is the slide that we're currently on. So I'm just going through the different elements of the ION suite. So apologies for that. For some reason the screen sharing had paused itself. Okay, so ION Connect, integration, ION event management, alerts and events, and ION workflow, a workflow engine that we can use to build workflow in and around individual applications or across different applications. And all three of those things are actually accessible through a single user interface, a single web-based design and management tool which is called ION Desk. So ION Desk is at the heart of the ION suite. ION Desk is the actual management interface for managing, monitoring anything that's happening within the ION environment, whether it's where we build our integrations, it's where we build the workflow. So we have a graphical workflow designer, it's where we can set up alerts, we can monitor alerts that have already been generated, and if anything is going wrong, we can track that all through a single common user interface which is called ION Desk. ION Activity Deck is simply a desktop feed. The name obviously taken from Twitter's TweetDeck, but the idea is exactly the same. We have a desktop-based tool with a feed of information. So if somebody is subscribed to an event or they receive an alert from one of the applications that's connected to Infor ION, that will appear in their activity deck. Likewise, that activity deck can be displayed on mobile devices. It doesn't have to be on a desktop machine. Or alternatively, any of the alerts, tasks, workflow notifications that are coming out of Infor ION, they can be also alternatively surfaced, as we call it, in the Infor Mingle interface. Now the Mingle interface is really the collaboration platform that sits on top of ION. So on the one hand, that provides an outlet for streaming all of these activities into collaborative feeds. In addition to that, it also gives the ability to run any of the underlying applications embedded in a collaboration platform and the ability to share the context of any of those application screens. So Infor Mingle is not a core part of the ION suite, but it's something that can sit on top of ION to give it a little bit of extra value, and throws in a couple of other nice pieces of functionality into the mix. But again, that's all running in a common web-based user interface. Okay, so when when Infor designed the ION designed the ION platform, these were some of the key design goals, I guess you could say, they had in mind when they were putting this together. I won't go through all of these in detail, but you can see, from an integration perspective, for example, it needed to be something that was easy, able to easily integrate not just Infor applications, but third-party custom legacy applications. But it's also something that is cloud-enabled. We need to be able to use this with cloud applications, so it needs to be able to integrate not just applications that are sitting behind the firewall on-premise, but with ION we can actually connect to external web services. We can connect to exchange rate providers. If you've got a cloud-based expense management system, if you're using CRM like we are at Eclipse, we use Salesforce.com. There are out-of-the-box connectors for Salesforce.com and Infor applications. So we can integrate across the internet, and we can integrate cloud and non-cloud applications. Infor Business Cloud is actually the latest offering from Infor. That's just the name for the cloud packages that will be coming very shortly, the first of which has just recently been launched for some of the Infor applications, software as a service, so Infor Business Cloud. And there will of course be cloud versions or cloud packages for all of the SunSystems versions. With regards to business process management, we need to be able to easily manage business document flows, human workflows, emails, capturing conversations between different people within the organization. We need to have a mechanism for managing distribution of work and approvals. And then exception management, which is where the monitors and the alerts come in. So we can be alerted if something happens in one of the applications that are connected to ION. Likewise, we can be alerted if something should have happened but didn't. So it's all about being proactive, getting the most out of these different applications. So we said at the beginning, Infor ION is really built on internet architecture, and as we said just now, it can integrate across the cloud. It can integrate on-premise and cloud applications, and the benefits of being built on the technology of the internet era, as it were, are it's all about loosely coupled applications. It should be something, and again, these are design goals that Infor had in mind when they put it together. It needed to be something that was quick to implement, low risk, something that was easily enabled, easily changeable, the ability to upgrade easily. So if you upgrade one of the outlying applications, if you upgrade SunSystems, or if you upgrade the expense management solution, for example, if those two things are connected through ION, because they're connecting through a standard internet architecture, standard open documents mechanism, if you upgrade one of the applications, then the integrations shouldn't break. So one of the fundamental design goals behind the ION Connect was being able to develop integrations that don't break if you upgrade one of the connected applications. And as we talked about before, it should be something, a platform that can actually leverage the power of the cloud. Okay, so just in a little bit more detail, so let's have a look at how we could use ION as an integration platform. We'll just talk about some of the things, ION as an integration platform in relation to SunSystems. So if we just roll back several years, 10, 15, maybe even 20 years, and we look at the evolution of being able to integrate SunSystems with different things. If we think back to SunSystems 4, it was a very linear process. In SunSystems 4, if you wanted to get information out of SunSystems and into another application, it was a case of transfer the information out into a flat file, move the data across into different site or into a different server, and then import the information in from a flat file into the target database in the target application. And of course, there was no sort of intelligence around this. This was not something that could be scheduled. It was very limited by today's standards. SunSystems 5 came along, that evolved, and that evolved considerably. We had the introduction of the SunSystems Connect web service. SunSystems, this was the first time SunSystems had ever had a web service, and again, the good thing was that this was built on standard XML technology, and we even got as far as being able to have tools like automation dash to schedule integrations or to pick up files on a schedule, integrate these out of external applications and into Sun, or maybe vice versa, export information out of Sun into an XML file and then push that out to another application. But quite often, what happened is you would get this XML file out, it would hit the target application, for some reason it would get rejected, it would result in an error, and then the whole process would fall down. There was no ability to monitor both of those applications together, to track the entire process. So even though the idea was great, and when everything worked, it worked great. When things went wrong, generally they could be quite catastrophic. So again, this is one of the reasons, one of the reasons behind developing something like ION, to be able to easily integrate all of these applications, but really proactively monitor what's going on. And if one step in the process falls down, then not have the entire integration grind to a halt. So if we look at Infor 10 or Sun 6 with the ability to integrate, we can of course still use the SunSystems Connect web service, but the idea is that we have Infor ION sitting in the middle, and again all of the information is traveling around between these applications using XML standards, but we have ION sitting there in the middle monitoring this. This is something we can track and monitor using Infor ION, so it gives us an extra level of intelligence, and it gives us a little bit extra, adds a bit more robustness to the whole integration process. So it's really an evolution of how we've been able to integrate some systems over the years. So it's the next step forward in that respect. And then the second thing here, just a sort of footnote on this slide, we have this thing called the Business Vault, and this is an optional component of Infor ION. The Business Vault is the ability for any document that's coming out, so any of these XML documents or business object documents as they're called, or BODs, as they're coming out of any of these events or documents that are coming out of the applications and flying in or out of SunSystems, if they contain information that we think is relevant for reporting, Infor ION can actually place a copy of that data into what's called the Business Vault, which is kind of like a reporting warehouse. So this can be done automatically for given types of information, so that any time something comes out of Sun or comes out of a related application that's connected to ION, it places a copy of that document in the Business Vault, so we can then report off of that using standard reporting tools such as the SQL reporting services, Q&A Vision, or whatever it is we're using. And as an alternative, we don't have to be talking about SunSystems here. In theory, we can apply the same logic to two completely non-Infor applications. So again, maybe a slightly less common scenario, but in theory, we can apply the same technology. We can apply the same intelligence to completely non-Infor applications and use ION to integrate those. Okay, so the benefits, again, just to sort of recap, so the benefits of having integration that is loosely coupled and powered by the technology of the internet. Hopefully, if we upgrade one of the connected applications, and we're not going to break reports, we're not going to break any localizations, we can integrate faster. It makes the whole middleware platform a lot easier to implement and manage, and the infrastructure for doing the integration is no longer embedded in the underlying application. It's actually extracted out or extrapolated out and just sitting as an independent tool in itself. So hopefully all of this should mean that integrations become simpler with ION. Okay, so the second part of the, or I guess the second fundamental usage of the ION platform is for the creation and management of workflow and events. So if we think about what are the, I guess, the successful ingredients, or what are the, the ingredients for a successful business process management solution? Well, we need to be able to, if we look at a workflow process, the first thing we need to be able to do is to easily identify every task within that process. We want something that we can modify easily, so if the process changes, we don't have to go back to the drawing board and completely rewrite the entire workflow. It's something we can add to, refine easily with maximum efficiency. And if we develop a workflow process that works well in one part of the business, we want to maybe roll that out to another part of the business. We should have the ability to be able to replicate that process as widely as possible. And again, this is something that traditionally has been a little bit difficult if maybe if the workflow engine is embedded in proprietary applications as opposed to being completely separated. If you have a common workflow process, but maybe the connected applications are slightly different, but the process is exactly the same, there's no way of easily replicating that and then maybe making a few minor changes. With ION, you can actually do that, so you can easily replicate a workflow process, even if the target applications underneath are different that you need to connect to. And of course, as we actually just said, the common issues traditionally when dealing with workflow engines or event management, there's generally a lack of visibility, or it's difficult to to provide transparency. You see all of the steps in the process, see exactly who's involved at any given stage. The implementation of workflow is quite often inconsistent across different applications and across sites. If we have one application that we use for purchasing in one part of the world, may be fantastic and have a fantastic workflow engine, but we use a different P2P application in a different region, and the workflow in there is absolutely dreadful, and we really can't implement the the standard the standard business process within there. So we end up with workflow we can't implement because of incompatible applications. By using something like ION, we can implement a common workflow process across all of those applications. And quite often, workflow designers or event management systems, they're really too technical. They're difficult to implement, and they they actually make things more complex than they need to be. So again, if we just sort of think about, this comes back to this idea of the disparate enterprise, all of these different elements of people, data, machines connected together, and there's a lot of different things, processes. We often have, very structured processes. If we start at the bottom of this diagram, we have very structured processes that maybe exist within our existing ERP systems. And then we have unstructured processes, so we maybe need to provide some input into what into a workflow process. We need to get some confirmation from a colleague, from a superior. We need to get sign off of a document. But actually, a lot of times these things are happening outside of the system. It's being done via IM, it's being done via email, over the telephone, face-to-face conversations, and there's no way of actually capturing or recording any of those interactions, so we can't build that into any of these workflow processes. So again, this is something, and especially if we're using something ION in combination with something like Mingle, we can tackle that problem. So again, just very quickly, the goals behind the ION workflow solution were something where we can design workflow quickly. We've got graphical modeling tools. We should have the ability to detect events or things that should have happened but didn't. And again, the whole thing should be built on standard, open technology and internet standards, so XML and OAGIS. And again, we talked about consistency, being able to reproduce the workflow across sites, but also everything in ION is role-based, so access to any of the, when you implement something, whether it's a piece of workflow, whether it's access to an integration, generating alerts, target groups to send this to. It's a completely role-based system, so it's all managed on It's integrated with Active Directory and uses Active Directory users and groups to manage that. And of course, any alerts and tasks that we generate, they should be available, as we said before, not just on our desktop machines, but actually on any device, whether that's a mobile device, a tablet, an iPhone, or a browser. So this is I guess this is the end result. So this is an end result of a piece of workflow process, illustration of what it might look like if we're looking at it within Mingle. But actually, what are some? Maybe let's just take a look, and we'll jump into the product in a second and take a look at a couple of practical applications. But if we think about this in relation to SunSystems, what are the common uses for something like this? Well, the classic one is the ability to approve journals. So traditionally, the ability to approve journals within SunSystems has been very limited. There is a sort of limited journal authorization functionality within SunSystems, but it is it's not great. It doesn't work fantastically well, and of course, users actually the main downfall of the whole thing is that even to approve those journals, users need to be set up on SunSystems itself. If we're using something like Ion, because we're just integrating with Active Directory, somebody who's approving that journal, may never need to go into SunSystems in their life. They just need to sign something off, via a browser or via a mobile device, and we can do that. We can build some workflow on top of the the journal process in SunSystems, and then we can push that out for approval using Infor Ion, and that's actually an example we'll take a look at in a second. So that's one SunSystems related scenario. Another one, for example, would be onboarding of employees. So we have a new employee join the organization, and quite often when we go through the process of setting up employees within the company, giving them access to all the different systems, we need to update their data in a number of different places, and quite often the core data that needs to be created is the same. So whether we need to set them up on the if we're talking about an employee that needs to be reimbursed for personal expenses. They need to be set up on the finance system, they need to be set up in the expense management system, maybe they need to be set up on the the HR system or the payroll system as well. And obviously a lot of the core information is going to be exactly the same, but we can actually use Infor Ion so that once the core information has been set up in one place, we can trigger that information is then pushed out and used to update other connected systems. So in the SunSystems expense management example, we could, once we've set up the supplier on, on SunSystems in supplier setup, that could then trigger, the creation of an XML document that automatically pushes that out, sets up the basic record in the expense management system, and at the same time sends out a message to the HR manager to say, basic record has been created in the HR system, and go and fill in the remaining payroll details. And again, if we just finally look at how this could look in terms of the the presentation to end users, alerts, they can be easily displayed, as we said. We've got a nice looking interface for the display of alerts where you can sort by time. We can even implement things like escalation into some of these workflow processes. So if the journal authorization process or the expense claim process, if something hasn't been actioned within a given time frame, we can build in an escalation so that it either gets additionally sent to somebody else, or the the workflow moves on to the next stage, or does something else. And of course, anybody who's got any tasks to deal with as part of any workflow that's been generated through Infor Ion, again, that can be presented in the really nice user interface within the browser or on a tablet, and directly from within their homepage, the task homepage within Mingle, or from within the the SunSystems browser, we can quickly approve and reject any actions that we need to deal with. Okay, so again, just last slide, probably just a couple more examples of things we could do. For example, with Infor Ion event management in relation to SunSystems. Again, these are sort of classic examples, but one of the things this is or could be used for. You have a lot of processes in SunSystems that maybe either take a long time to complete, or you need to be notified as a result of something completing either successfully or unsuccessfully. So, as an example, somebody's done a payment run in Sun. Somebody else within the maybe within the procurement team, somebody else within the account management team needs to be notified that certain suppliers have now been paid. They don't ever need to have access to SunSystems. As soon as that payment run has been completed, we could trigger an alert or a message that goes out to somebody else in the business to say, payment run has been completed. Your if it's the account management case, the accounts that you're responsible for, or your suppliers, the procurement manager who's responsible for managing those relationships, he can be notified that those suppliers have now been paid. So if they get any queries back, they know at a glance that those suppliers have now been paid. But again, he never needs to access SunSystems to find that out. Ledger revaluation, or you've got some other long-running process that maybe needs to be completed. You kick it off on a Friday night before you go home. You've got that massive month-end ledger revaluation to run across 10 different business units, and worst case scenario, maybe something goes wrong. If something does go wrong halfway through that process, you probably want to find out about it as soon as you can. You don't have to wait until Monday morning to find out that something's gone wrong with the the ledger revaluation, and now we can't meet the the month-end reporting deadline that we've given to HQ. So ledger revaluation, again, we can just easily tag on some events off the back of ledger revaluation, so that if ledger revaluation completes either successfully or unsuccessfully, somebody can be notified about it, and then directly from within that notification, they can drill through and they can log into Sun, assuming they have the correct access, and maybe rectify what's gone wrong in the case where something has gone wrong. Or if ledger revaluation has completed successfully, then they can sleep easy over the weekend and come in on Monday morning knowing that all is well in the finance world. So again, it's just some examples, but there's a lot of things in Sun where we can actually have the ability to build in events and alerts just by using standard technology within Infor Ion. So these are what we call the standard SunSystems BODs, or business object documents, and I guess what you need to know about this is these are really just sort of intervention points within SunSystems where we can use these as starting points for a piece of workflow. We can generate workflow around any of these kinds of activities within Sun. Another useful one is the SunSystems period event. So, for example, if we have an organization that has lots of different business units, but the reporting period needs to be the same across all of those business units. So maybe at the start of the new reporting period, the start of the new financial period, you need to set the current period in the ledger setup across 100 different business units to be the new period. That can be quite a time-consuming process in itself if you need to go into 100 different business units and update the ledger setup or update the period value in ledger setup. With Ion, you can get that done. You can, either as a result of something else, or you could create a piece of workflow that goes into each business unit and then sets that value, and then once that workflow has been created, you can then trigger that, either from a maybe from a web page or from something else within SunSystems. You can call that piece of workflow and then have that go in and update the current period across all of those different business units. So there's a lot of things we can do. I guess most of the sort of standard events and master data types are available. Most of the sort of core processes within the financial and the business modules are available. But if there aren't any that are available, we also have the ability to define what we call custom bods. So really, there's no limit potentially to the different things we can integrate in and out of SunSystems using Infor. Okay, well that's probably enough PowerPoints. Let's just have a quick flip over to the VM, and let's just quickly walk through some of these things in the product itself. We'll just take a quick look at what does Infor actually look like. So just have a look here. Okay, so we'll just start off and let's just have a look at. We'll just walk you through the. Well, let's just walk through a couple of examples first of all before we go any further. So let's just log into. Let's just have a look. Let's just log into SunSystems. So just waiting for Sun to log in. So that's the first time I've logged in on this machine, so it takes a couple of seconds the first time. So let's just go in as a demo user. Now this is not the one thing to note. This is not the latest version of Sun. This is 6.1. It's not 6.2. As I said before, we will have some sessions specifically looking at 6.2 in the next couple of weeks. So this is just SunSystems 6.1 at the moment. Okay, so one of the pieces of workflow that I've got set up in here is got some alerts actually. So not workflow. I've got some alerts set up on creation of analysis codes. So we've got the scenario where we've got an analysis dimension that represents project code, and I'm going in as Patricia. I'm going to create a new project code, but maybe the project manager needs to be notified, or maybe somebody else within the procurement team needs to be notified when when a new project code is created as an analysis code in Sun, so maybe they can go off and do something else in one of the other systems, or maybe they need to update some report or spreadsheet somewhere else. So let's just have a look at project. So let's just see what we've got in here. P001. Just check I'm in the right business unit actually. Just check. P041, okay, so let's do P042. So this is the new project for, let's just say, implementation of CRM system, Salesforce Salesforce. Okay, so that record has been created. So if I go in as a different user, so that's fine. Let's just log out here. And if I go in as let's just go in as a different user, and I'm going to go in actually. Got to log in this time to Mingle just to see the results of that. So the other user actually uses Mingle as their home page. So let's just see what's going on here. And again, it's the first time I've logged into this this afternoon, so it's probably a little bit slow the first time I log in, as is always the case. Okay, so straight away I can see, this is already happening in real time. So as soon as I log in, because I've got an alert set up on the the creation of project codes, I can see as soon as somebody is creating a new project code, I've got an alert in there saying new project code has been created, and again I can drill into that, have a look at all that, do something with it if I need to, or attach a document. So that's a basic example, but the technology behind that is Infor Ion. So we're using Ion events and alerts to pick up as soon as in this case we've got an alert set up on the the analysis dimension for projects, and then as soon as an alert is created, we're going to as soon as an analysis code is created, we're going to send out an alert to the relevant group of people. So if we look at what's actually happening behind the scenes, if we go into Ion Desk, which we said is our our single user interface for the the management interface for everything to do with Ion, and again you can see here this is completely a web-based tool. So this is Ion 10x. So if we just go in and have a look at event management. So we've got a few active monitors set up. So this is the one we're interested in. So the new analysis dimension. So if we just have a look at that, you can see every part of the Ion. So the Ion Desk is first of all divided down into the elements, the key components of the Ion suite that we talked about before. So Connect for designing integrations, event management, workflow, and then some additional management tools for activities, tasks, and OneView, some additional monitoring tools. And then within each of those, you'd normally have a modeling aspect and a management aspect. The modeling aspect is where you actually design anything. So in the case of Connect, you're designing an integration, you're modeling an integration. Event management, you're modeling an alert. In the case of workflow, you're modeling some workflow. So if we look at this new analysis dimension created, so we can see we've just got a name in here. We have a look at the attributes. So we're just these things here. These are just sort of standard building blocks that we we have within Infor Ion, and in which case, in this case, they refer to elements of the SunSystems application. So the conditions are whenever anybody adds something, new code added in product or project. It could be, in this case it's an ad, but you can trigger an alert maybe if somebody deletes a supplier or something. Then it's going to generate an alert, and who's it going to send it to? If we look in the distribution, it's going to, in this case it's just going to send it to all SunSystems users, but that could, of course, you could easily edit that. We could send that to a specific group, as we said, or specific user within the Active Directory setup. So it's pretty straightforward. If you look at the management side of it, you can see there the status of all active monitors. We can see which ones are which ones are running. We can go in, and if there's any errors in there, we can go in and monitor those as well. So that's one example of using ION to monitor events within SunSystems and then generate an alert, and that alert can be published to Mingle. It can be sent out, of course, via email, or it could be delivered on a mobile device. The other example would be, again, we talked about journal authorization, and again, pretty basic example, but let's just take a look at how that might work. So if we can just log into Sun again, I'll just go into the desktop version this time, so it's fine. And again, basic example, but just to give you an idea of some of the things you can do with ION. So if I just log in and just have a look. Oh, ALC is fine, so let's just go in. And we've got, in this case, I'm just going to enter a general journal here, a GJ, FGJ, journal, and because I don't want people to just randomly post general journals all over the place. If somebody does somehow post a general journal, then I want to be notified when that happens. So let's just choose. That's fine. Do that. That's fine. Just enter general journal. Oops. Yeah, whatever, let's just stick it anywhere. Oops. Yeah, whatever. And of course I selected the classic, I selected the journal type. Sorry, I selected the wrong business unit here. That hasn't got the authorization type set up on that. Sorry about that. But I'll just show you what that looks like anyway. So let's just show you. If we just have a look at, we set up a journal that's actually FGJ, not GJ. So if we look into create a journal with some authorization on it, what would happen is that journal will get submitted, but it's not actually going to be posted in SunSystems until it's been authorized. What happens is that ION pushes that authorization set out for authorization. So in this case, it would come to somebody within either within Mingle, on a mobile device. They can look at that task that gets generated by Infor ION. Again, we can configure the parameters, so we can configure fields where they can maybe enter comment, put in some additional narrative, define the action so they can choose. So if they say, that's fine, you've got to be kidding. That would then action that journal, and then as the basis of that, depending on the action they've selected, that would then, if it's okay, go through and finally post that journal. But what we're doing is we're actually abstracting that workflow outside of SunSystems itself, and we're managing that in Infor. And again, the way that that's being done is, again, if we look at the Ion desk, have a look at the, let's just take a look at the workflows. Here we've got the journal authorization workflow there, so let's just have a look at that. So you can see it's a very, it's a graphical editor for designing workflows. So again, it's all about dragging elements in, different building blocks, creating a decision point. So we've got the starting point, got the conditions in there. So we've got a decision point, yes or no. I selected the wrong business unit, but if I selected the right business unit, if the journal type was GJ or FGJ, or then it would result in and go down the authorization process. If it wasn't, then it would just go straight through to the end. But then once it's in that authorization process, you can see there. So we require authorization by the accounting manager. We give them that message. We send it to a set of approvers. We can define things like escalation, so as we talked about before. So if something doesn't get action for, if it remains unassigned for one day, then you can escalate it, do something else. You can have multiple levels of escalation, and you can see here, okay, if the amount is actually greater or equal to than £1,000, then it's also going to require additional level of authorization, and again, and so on and so forth. So it becomes, it's relatively straightforward to create authorizations, and again, that's all done within the Ion desk using the graphical tools. It's designed, it's something you can manage within a user interface within the browser. You don't require any specific coding knowledge. We're not going to write any sort of scripts or do anything fancy in the database to get this workflow up and running. It's all done using a toolkit, and that's really the the idea behind Infor Ion. It's a single user interface for the management and creation of all of these workflows, alerts, integrations, and a single management interface for the monitoring of all of these different things, so we can track if something's going wrong. And as we said, for SunSystems, there's definitely a lot of things we can do. Again, this was really just a sort of short demonstration to give you an idea of a couple of things we could maybe use as examples. There's really, there's a lot more we can do with this in relation to SunSystems. So we're kind of running a little bit short on time, so I probably took a little bit longer than I should have done, so apologies for that. But what I'm going to do now is ask Emma to open up the lines to see if there's any questions.
Thanks, Richard.
So Emma,
2 questions have already come in. Alan would like to know, firstly, do they need to get Infor Mingle in order to use Infor Ion?
No. Okay. So, what do you? What do you need to get up and running? So you don't need Infor Mingle. So Ion, the way Ion is licensed typically is it runs on. It's a little bit confusing. There's some core components. There's Ion Process, which is the workflow and alerts and tasks components. That's one element, and the second element is Ion Connect, which is used for designing integrations. Ion Mingle is an additional module, and Ion Mingle is really just the SharePoint integration and the nice collaboration platform for delivering all of this stuff. So that's an additional optional component. Now, the way these things are normally licensed is the core Ion components, Connect and Ion Process, they're licensed by transaction volume, so they're based on the number of events or alerts passing through the Ion server. Mingle is just priced as a a user subscription. So if you want 100 users Mingle, you just purchase an annual subscription to that. Now, one thing that's actually running at the moment, which you may have received a notification about from Emma, is that there's a very heavily discounted Infor 10x starter pack that Infor are promoting at the moment. So what that effectively gives you, I think it comes in around 9,000 US dollars, or more or less 6,000 GBP. That gives you Ion Connect with the ability to connect SunSystems to one additional application. It gives you Ion Process and Workflow, and on top of which it also gives you 100 Mingle users into the bargain. So that is actually a really good offer, because it probably represents, if you price up all of those things individually, it's probably about a 600% discount. Bad news is that offer finishes at the the end of this month and is probably unlikely to be repeated. So if you are interested in Mingle, then definitely get in touch. It's definitely worth investigating if you're already on Sun 6 or looking to move to Sun 6. The 10x starter pack is something definitely worth investigating. But traditionally, to answer the original question, you don't need to have Mingle to use Ion Workflow or Alerts. That can be purchased completely separately.
Thanks, Richard. Alan's second question was, does the integration rely on XML file only?
No, is the XML is, I guess, the preferred method, but we can also we do have data connectors, so we can XML. So it's not actually creating XML file. I guess the thing to it uses XML as the common language for all of the applications to talk to each other. But what it's not doing, it's not creating 6,000 XML files on your server and then you importing those, or those being imported and exported between different applications. Obviously, if you think about it as an input payload, the XML is the XML is sort of generated by the web service and then fed into the target application, but you don't end up with a load of XML files on your server. So that's one thing. But the other option is we do have database connectors that we can use with Infor Ion as well. So we can by default, Sun will talk to everything using XML, but if you want to connect, you want to connect Sun to another application that doesn't have an XML-enabled web service, then we can plug that in using a .NET data provider, or we can go straight to the database to get that information out. Use Ion to transform that into the SunSystems required XML, and then push that into Sun, or vice versa. Suck something out of Sun, use Ion to transform it into something that then gets sent back into another application via the database. So short answer is no. XML is generally the preferred method, and it's the default method of communication for SunSystems, but it's not the only way. And you don't end up with a bunch of XML files sitting on your server hard drive.
Thanks, Richard. Please, can anyone let me know if you have any further questions, either by raising your hand or by typing in a question on your keypad. Thanks.
So what I'll do is, if just let it run for a couple more minutes if we have any more questions. If there aren't any more questions, what I'll do anyway is I'll just stick our contact details up on the screen. So if you want to, if you think of anything else, or if you want to discuss anything that you've seen today in a little bit more detail, then definitely don't hesitate to get in touch with either myself or Emma. That's our email addresses up there, and those are our phone numbers if you want to speak to us. So, are there any more questions, Emma?
No more questions, no.
Okay. Well, in that case, we'll wrap it up. So thank you very much for taking the time out today to attend this today's webinar. We hope you found it useful. As I said, we're going to be running some more webinars over the next few weeks. So if you're interested, definitely come along. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you. Thanks very much.